I'm Bohake. So I'm just going to quickly talk about Jakarta EE8. So I know a lot of people are into Spring, especially in the previous companies I worked for, everybody were heavily into Spring. The only reason I went to Java EE because I was getting tired of writing a small app and then building a huge WAR file or EF file. And I'm like, no, there's a simple way of doing it. So I invested heavily on Java EE because I wanted a standardized platform for enterprise application. And in the beginning, most of the big frameworks that we use usually in SIA were actually leveraging off Java EE platform. Like Apache Struts were leveraged out of servlet specification. When Spring also joined, before the whole CDI, there was dependency injection, but a lot of technology also came from leveraged out of the Java EE specification, and some of the technology that Spring has also contributed to the Java EE specification, so it became two-way. So quickly, obviously, Joe introduced myself. So that's me. That's my LinkedIn page, so if you're looking for me. And as she explained already, I'm an enterprise Java developer. I've done a bit of DevOps. I've done a bit of team lead. I've done a bit of software architecture. I've delved into microservices as well, mostly on some in Spring frameworks, some in Java EE. So whatever the customer bought or the customer decided is what I used.
Yes, please.
Mic check 1, 2. Hey, it's on. So that's my blog. I'm trying to get back to it. Code in my spare time. I make beats if I have to, when I got time. And there's my social media, and I'm on the market. So, okay, is that okay? So quickly what I do, I started a podcast this year because I'm I always have issues, but I can't express it. I'm mostly an introvert. So this year I just started a podcast just to talk about stuff that is really important that we barely talk about. I just launched it in 2020, and it's available wherever you listen, on Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, and socials. And the DevOps for Kids quickly. So what we do, started it in 2017. It's same initiative. There's like a global DevOps for Kids initiative. So basically what we do is we go around trying to introduce kids to robotics and programming. So especially in disadvantaged schools and whatever, where they have never they've never done computer science at school or whatever, because as soon as you get to engineering, you have to learn to code, at least in a C language. So yeah, we've already done Durban, Joburg and Cape Town. We've already been doing this for 2 years. We're busy securing a venue for Durban this year as well, and somewhere in the Northwest as well. I got a friend of mine who's trying to hook us up. And we're looking for instructors, sponsors, and so if you've got good ideas that you want to teach kids, you can come see me as well. And this is where we are. And all the videos on the event are now on YouTube channel. Okay, so Jakarta EE8. So brief history. So a lot of people who started in core Java Enterprise had a lot of frustration with using it initially as well. And also, like the releases, as more people were leveraging on Java EE spec, so a lot of good features came out from other third-party like Spring were releasing new technology and new features, and the Java space took at least 3-4 years. So there was a lot of frustration. So Oracle, and the processes were not really that great. So Oracle announced in 2017 that it will submit Java EE to Eclipse Foundation. And it became an Eclipse Enterprise for Java top-level project, and then it got rebranded to Jakarta EE in 2018 after votes from the community. And last year, Jakarta EE8 got launched. So Jakarta EE8 got launched on the 10th September. It's fully compatible with Java EE8. So, and there are a lot of application servers or containers that are Java EE8 compatible, but those that implement, like, for example, Eclipse microprofile and on other other technologies that leverages Java EE8, that form part of the specification, the Jakarta EE8 specification, are listed on the compatibility website, on the Jakarta EE website. So the main ones are Eclipse Glassfish, it's no longer Oracle, Open Liberty, and Payara server. Basically, Payara is a direct fork of Glassfish. So if you use Glassfish, you use Payara, exact same thing. Mostly they got faster release cycle and they fix bugs that usually Glassfish people usually take long. And then Wildfly from Red Hat. And then before we go too quickly, Jakarta EE9 has been approved already this year. And the big changes that might happen is the Java X namespace to Jakarta, because of Oracle owns the namespace, it's trademarked. And they're going to do some code cleanups, the spec cleanup, and they're not going to enforce backward compatibility due to the cleanup. So, and then most of your specifications will have a major release. So JPA2 becomes JPA3, JSF2, JSF3. So everything's going to be a major release. Like example, JSF3 won't be compatible with JSF1. So Payara is already heavily involved in getting the Jakarta EE9 also backward compatible with the previous version of Java EE, while still sticking to the standard year. So we're still waiting for announcement from other vendors. All right, so to the tutorial. I'm going to publish the code on GitHub. So I've been working on it for like a week and got the major bug fixed this morning, like late last night. So I was like, I'm really happy about it. So in this, the technology I use for now is Java 13. So the current latest Java 13. Maven, because I'm using Open Liberty, you're required to install features that you need for your project, and that also heavily depends on Maven. So you can't really run Open Liberty without Maven. And IDE of your choice, and browser, of course. So to include Java EE in your project, you basically need to add the API on your POM, and basically have to specify the scope as provided. Otherwise, you're going to have issues because your container's already got the API implementation already running on the container. So Open Liberty has the implementation of it already. So you have to include that in your project. And then for those who's creating microservices, it is Eclipse microprofile compliance. So with microprofile, so quick rundown, it's just it's basically a web module for microservices architectures. So it leverages out of Java EE, and then additional are like your Open API, house check, fault tolerance, configuration management, all of that stuff. So that's already bundled. So the web profile you come in with, so everything you do is either CDI inject, and if you've used RESTful web services, JSRS, you're good to go. And to include it in your project, you basically add that on on your POM, and then obviously with a provider scope, so that you do not build the whole dependencies into your project. And then for unit testing, I'm using JUnit 5. So the JUnit Jupyter module because it's separated into 3 layers nowadays. I found out last week, so I'm using JUnit Jupyter, and then microservice testing for your integration test. So if you're familiar with Aquilian and whatever, that's a step to set up and run. And with microservice testing, it will actually create a Docker image internally, run your unit test, and then once it's done, it literally deletes it. So for those so I would suggest to run it on a Linux platform or not on a Windows platform, because if you haven't got Docker completely set up on Windows, because everybody knows it's a pain. But other than that, cool. All right, so I'll quickly show a demo. All right, so forget the other MS tutorials, the Jakarta EE demo. So the top one is my parent module. So it's a parent project with all the 3 sub-modules: the repository, the RESTful, and the service. The service is basically the business service. And the RESTful is basically the microservice, the front end, where you actually invoke your RESTful application through other Postman, or if you got OpenUI, OpenAPI, like Swagger Open, you can actually invoke through Swagger as well. And then your repository is where I've put actually all the DAOs and repository code. So on the main project, basically, I've included the Jakarta EE API over here, so over there, and Eclipse micro profile over here as well. And then for unit test, Jupyter API, integration test, microservice testing. And then, where is this? And then I've included Open Liberty here to basically run it within your application. So you can actually, once you build your project, you can actually use Maven to run your application. You can actually say Liberty run and it will automatically run your application through Maven. So you don't, or other option is to download the Open Liberty, install it somewhere, put a WAR file into a shared folder somewhere, and then configure. So, all right, so repository is basically simple. You got like your user entity. For now, I've only got a user entity here. And then I've got a simple DAO. So it's basically, for Spring people, it's like a repository pattern kind of thing. Nothing too fancy. But on the RESTful web services, that's where everything becomes interesting, because on the source, where is, let me do this. On the source, you'll see there's source main Liberty. So this is called a shared configs within your project if you run it through Maven. So here I've installed my SQL connector, and I'll show you what's inside the server.xml. And then, so inside the server.xml is basically source. The configuration of Open Liberties for your application. So at the top, you'll see I added the Java 8 feature. So if you add the Java 8 feature, it will it will automatically download all the libraries that form parts of the Java EE8 spec. Alternatively, if you want to use specific ones, you can actually use a specific one that you actually need, because downloading the whole feature set is actually takes time and resources. And then also the micro profile 3.2. The advantages with using, for me, while using OpenLiberty for this example is you can actually configure this thing in real time while the server is still up and running. So there's no need for downtime at all. So, which is a plus feature. Even if when you do code changes, it automatically reload and still keeping your session and data as required. And so the data source is set up over here. As you can see, everything is transactional. And I put my application as a context root. That's basically it. So with all of that, you basically got your whole micro profile container and Java EE and Jakarta EE8 container all set up. And I literally built the project. So I'm going to the RESTful service over here. So if I do, no, actually Liberty run. So it goes to the project, it will actually start it. So Liberty is installing the features. So it picked up my 2 features. And yeah, because the 2 features have all the other specific API specs in there, it will have to load and verify all of them. So that takes a while. So the nice thing is if you want to really make it smaller, you can say include CDI, include health monitoring and all of that stuff into the project, and it will actually, while that's loading up, so it's all the things like EJB started. The top one is all the Java EE8, Jakarta EE8 stuff, like your bean validation, your JDBC drivers, and the small ones are like micro profile, open tracing, open API, and all the other good stuff. And then once that's done, it will literally tell you, wait, it's still loading. Okay, so once your micro profile has been loaded, it will give you the list of APIs. So if you open here, that will be your Swagger-looking open API port. Your authentication will be on the JWT. I don't know, IBM API, I don't even know what it is. And then your health metrics. So you can actually register your services programmatically, and then I'll show you how I did mine, and then put it, and then once you've registered it, it will automatically register under the endpoint health, and then your metrics as well. And then that should be done. Once it's done, it says the default server is ready to run a smarter planet. So it started. But the only reason it took longer because I've enabled all feature sets. So, all right. So once that's done, let me open a new tab, new window. So before, you'll have to include Swagger in your Maven POM prior to this. Now I don't have to. It automatically inspects my, if I come here and I look at my user resource, Control Shift. So if I use, so this is just my resource. So with a path user, and I can return a JSON and application or XML, and this is just basic code. And then these are open API annotations. So you just have to use annotation. You can also, so you can even annotate like your path, your variables over here, as well as to have more description, and also annotate like what expected result you can get, like 404 means this, 500 means that, or 302, or created is 201 or something. So, and then once that's done, it will automatically register on OpenAPI, and you can actually try it out. So on over here, what else was? So if, for example, if I had to try it out. No, man. And I execute, it should return me something. Yeah, so it literally returned me my responses with whatever. So everything is annotation based, so there's not really much code configuration. The one additional feature that I wanted to, if I'm not mistaken, one other feature is if you're using the config management, you can actually specify your config into your server.xml and basically inject it into your application. So so here I wrote some liveness checks. So if you want to write your health check for your application, you just basically have to implement health check and specify your health check response. Liveness is basically once the application started, it basically can give you like live health check that whatever you specify. And then readiness is basically during the application launch, you can actually specify which servers can start up or can be disabled. So, and you can annotate it with that at readiness over there, but it also implements health check. So the OpenLiberty will know how to put it, and it will add it on health, basically. And then for test, you can literally, on test, you can actually write your unit test. So you basically write your microshed test, and you inject your resource using REST client, and then get the same response as you would a normal unit test. And then instead of doing OpenLiberty, the run feature, you can run it in dev mode. So what it does, it starts OpenLiberty in dev mode, and then it will tell you that it's ready to, that dev mode is ready, and then you press enter, and then it runs all your test cases automatically. Now that requires a Docker instance to run, so I should have been smart enough to run it on my Linux machine, but on a Linux VM. But I started in Windows, so I was like, I really don't have that time to actually do that. So that's that, and everything else is basically simple. So you basically, your normal stuff, you inject your service as you would normally do with your microservices, and this is basically a standard simple service. So, and that's also injected a user DAO, and it's basically simple business logic, and like just throw your exceptions, and you can actually configure your JAX RS to to capture your runtime exception and bring whatever result that you want to. The same thing I did here. So if you look so all my business exception extends business exception, and you can actually write your exception mapper and set it as a provider. So JAX-RS will pick up that if you have a specific exception of that type and its subclasses, it will generate that response, and it will give you a HTTP BAT request kind of thing. So that's basically the entire microservice in Jakarta EE 8. I don't guarantee that this might work on Java 9. I just have to, when it comes out, I'll probably change namespaces because Java X will not exist anymore. And then after that, we'll see if I can get it running successfully as I did this week. All right, so where was I? Okay, and is there any questions?
What does it run as an embedded application server when it starts up?
What?
That right before the execution, we've actually brought up the server.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in Spring Boot terms where it would launch an embedded Tomcat.
No.
What happens in this case?
No, that's what literally build a WAR file. Like in my example, last year I did on YouTube, I did the videos on YouTube where I showed how to do a microservice using Eclipse microprofile with Pyara. So you don't, in this example, the nice thing about Java EE or Jakarta EE is you don't specify what container to run to. You build your application and the container that's compliant to that specification you're using or that API you're using will actually introspect your application and basically register it. Like Wildfly, if it detects CDI, it detects ZJB, it detects microprofile specification, it will tell you these modules are enabled because your project has that.
Okay.
So you can deploy it on the list of compatible products that I showed.
I mean, what were you running for your example though?
I was running OpenLiberty because I wanted to write code and I keep it running and then it will automatically update for me. Okay. So that's why I included on the POM file, I included OpenLiberty in there. But I don't have to. I can literally take the WAR file and because it's not tied to the container and deploy it on Wildfly or use Pyara on it as well. Or Glassfish, for example. So as long as it's Jakarta EE 8 compliant, it will run.
So it's something like JT with Wire or Sphere or WebLogic or JBoss particular deployment descriptor. It's now generic deployment descriptor is what you're saying.
Yeah, but if you want like specific like features, like you want to specifically target IBM features, you can add their own description internally. It will be ignored by other containers, but IBM will pick it up. So yeah, so it's right once run any platforms or containers.
So
And
it's not like the bad old days where you had to have, for example, website application development
nah,
to generate the deployment descriptor.
we're actually following the whole Spring framework where you can actually, all you have to worry about is write code, and don't worry about what goes on a container level.
Until IBM customized their website, the application server.
Yeah. So, and actually, I came from, when I started with the WebSphere actually. So from WebSphere to OpenLiberty is actually a huge impact. Like the previous company I worked for, we were contemplating moving to WebSphere Liberty Profile, which where OpenLiberty branched off because of the features that they actually brought up. Literally, you never shut down. You can actually change port on the fly and it will automatically change for you. So, yeah. Oh, no. JDBC is basically, wait, hold on quickly. I'll tell you, I'm using JPA. So same way Java EE, you just inject your persistent context over there. And that's the abstract class. So all my DAOs actually extends that JPA DAO, and my persistence XML so this mouse work. So my persistence XML is there. You'll see the persistence unit has a name that I inject using persistence context. And because I'm using Open Liberty, which uses Eclipse link internally as a JPA implementation provider, that's why I've got Eclipse link configurations over there. And so in the project, mouse, you are killing me. Repository. So beans.xml basically enables CDI. So you just put that over there. And then your container will say, oh, enable CDI. In future, we want the thing to actually auto-detect by annotation. But yeah, since Java 6, I think that's been the way. And then your persistent XML is telling you it's where we actually link your persistent unit to your data source. And your data source is basically specified in your server.xml here for your server.xml in your OpenLiberty server.xml. So only OpenLiberty will see this. So if I deploy it on another container, this basically means nothing, basically.
So does your web application container also determine your dependency injection library or how dependency injection works?
Well, there's a CDI spec. So to be compliant, every container has to follow that specification. So it doesn't matter what implementation that you're using. I even forgot the name of one of them.
Doesn't microprofile implement the CDI spec?
It's so microprofile uses a subset called the web profile, which web profile uses a CDI spec. So yes, so it's got CDI, except microprofile does not have, if you guys use EJBs, does not have EJBs on there. So that's why everything I inject on all over the place. So doesn't matter. So you can use, like some uses Apache Delta Spike as an implementation of the CDI spec, but it doesn't matter. I don't really care. As long as my code works, I write the code according to how the CDI specs dictate, the container will do it for me. So Wildfly uses its own implementation. I really don't care. I just take the code, deploy, done deal. And the Wildfly is literally quite small. I actually don't even know how small this is. Besides the MySQL connector, which that's obviously it's going to be big, target 42 kilobyte.
So the wall is 42 kilobyte, but if you actually make it into a Docker image, it might be big because you need to do the whole web application container.
No. You can specify the Docker image to say, no, not really. Because if I deploy this as a Docker image, it will only install the JDK, Maven. And I can say to run the Maven command, just to run it through Maven. So FVA and Liberty run, and it will run it from there. Obviously, you need to specify space capacity-wise, but it's literally very small. But there is a Docker plugin, Maven Docker plugin. I forgot what it is. I did it couple of years back, where you can actually use Maven to build your package, but then it will upload it to Docker Central. And then from there, from Docker, you can actually load it from Docker Central and build, kind of thing. But you can do it this somewhere over here. Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
If you have
everyone.
any questions, you can meet up afterwards, network a bit.
Yeah.